Okay, so let's talk, please. Yeah. So the next talk is on the semantics of dependencies, relative clauses, and open clause and complements. Please.
Okay, so in the same conference last year, I talked when I was explaining some specific principles that could allow us to produce Montague-like semantic descriptions from dependency structures. And that talk was mainly about non-phrases and transitive verbs, about quantifiers. And so I'm still exploring that possibility, but I'm now looking at a little bit more complex constructions, relative clauses, where you have WH extraction, and also open clausal complements that are somehow related because being open, there are also missing an argument. So that there is also a sort of extraction. Okay, I will start by reminding or explaining what were those principles I'm building this work. You should think once. Okay, so we are all familiar with constituency parsing when we obtain a tree like this. Montague semantics seems to be very tied to that sort of parsing. Those trees may be represented as first order terms, and Montague semantics is sort of defined by induction of that sort. And that's what Montague calls the homomorphism, or what people call the homomorphism. The fact that the semantics of it is homomorphic in nature, the syntax. If we are making sort of dependency parsing, we do not have any longer a tree. Okay, we have seen that sort of structure in Timothy Joe. And in that sort of parsing, what we have are just dependency relations that correspond to functional relation between words. Okay, and so we have edges between words, and those edges are directed. They go from the head of, so to speak, the constituent, and they target the Google. And if you take a word like praise, then you can follow all those edges, and then somehow you have the constituent. And so praise is here isn't actually the head of the complete sentence. So if you take man, you follow this, and then you have a man, which is some sort of constituent. But we do not have as many information actually that we have in the past tree. And also sometimes the notion of constituent that we obtain that way it disagree with what we would have in the past tree. Okay, so the first question was how could we represent this by a term? And the idea is very simple. We're going to use those edges, those relations, in order to a sort of two argument functions. Okay, and so I'm not use that. So we can represent this. This structure is this. Okay, so you see, for instance, we have phrases and amending which are in the object relations. But if we do so, actually, we obtain a sort of spurious ambiguity, because this would be as well a possible way of representing this structure. And the idea I had was that we need to have to assign semantic recipes to the dependencies and to the words in such a way that this would be coherent. I mean, the both terms would give the same interpretation. And that coherence principle, it's like a guide on the way we could assign the semantic recipes. Okay, so the basic principles behind that work are like this. The first observation is that with the sort of representation we are using, if you take man, a man, wise man, a wise man, or even a proper name like Amandi, all those things must be of the same type, because all those things may be the argument of the same sort of dependency relation. And then, and this is a consequence, a direct consequence of that coherence principle. And then, also, if you look at the dependency relation, it takes two arguments of, say, of type alpha and beta. Alpha going to be the type of the governing, and beta will be the type of the head. So you take two arguments, but the result of that should have the same type as the head. Okay, so we are going to look at things like that for the semantics of the dependencies. Actually, there is a small technical difference, which is that I'm going to clarify everything instead of using Cartesian product, just using Descartes. That's a technical thing. Okay, now the question is, what should be those types? The types of the words, the types of the head, the type of a non-phrase, etc. So I start by just taking the standard types, standard interpretations in Montague semantics. So determiners, adnominal modifiers, non-phrases. In Montague semantics, there are different types. So E is a type of entities, E is a type of choose values. And then for the type of a word, and then possibly a sort of constituent with those dependencies, what I do is to take as a target, the type we have in Montague semantics, but provide as arguments all the possible all the possible gouvernee you may have in a with a noun or a noun phrase. And for the verb phrase, I'm taking a set of events, and this is due to Champollion, to Lucas Champollion, actually. And it's a way of having a good treatment of quantification in events. Okay, and with this, with this assignment for the sentence, simple sentence, I take as an example, a man, phrase, and indeed, I may have the following interpretation, and then you see that, for instance, for the indefinite article, the interpretation is completely standard. But for man, okay, the interpretation is with those possible arguments that correspond to gouvernee, a possible determiner, a possible nominal modifier, and then the body of the interpretation that the determiner applied to man, which is possibly modified by a. Okay. And since amending should have the same type, actually the real thing here is lambda p applied to a. That's what we have in Montague. But you have that determiner and that that possible nominal modification, which is just here for typing reasons. Okay. And then for the verb phrase, we have the fact that there exists an even, and then that even may be modified as p. And then if we look at the interpretations of the relations, okay, for the depth relations, which take a determiner and a noun, then it just applies a determiner d to the noun. And lambda EA correspond to the fact that we need to keep the same type. So lambda E, that's sort of dummy determiner, and A, that's a possible nominal modification. Okay, now those dummy arguments, in fact, they are going to be thrown away or fulfilled when the constituent is used by another relation. So, for instance, the subject dependency relation here, okay, it takes a noun and a verb, okay, and then it provides to the noun this modification, which just makes the noun to be the agent of the verb. But in addition, N needs a determiner, so a quantifier actually, and a modifier. And so here by default, the existential quantifier is provided, and the modifier is just identical. Okay, and this is a way of terminating the fact that you may iterate modification actually, and in case you would have a partial dependency structure, because you would possibly pass a non-grammatical sentence, then you would get something anyway. Okay, so suppose instead of a man praises Amandine, I would have man praises Amandine. Then I would obtain by default that there exists a man who is praising. Okay, and so what we want to do now is just to adapt those principles in order to treat relative clauses and also and also open clausal complete. Okay, so here is an example of a relative clause. A man who praises a man, so it's not phrase. And you see that the difficulty is that actually semantically, who in a Montague treatment would be the semantic head of this non-phrase. But here, this is not the case. The head is man, and for the relative clause, the head is the verb. So the standard way of treating extraction is by means of lambda abstraction. Okay, so I define as I have non-phrases, I define W non-phrases, which are non-phrases where we have extracted semantically an entity, and then who gonna be of this type. Then we also define, is that 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we also define the same thing for the verb phrase, and the relation here, the dependency relation, going to be between a noun phrase and a verb phrase where an entity has been extracted. Okay, and then with this, we may define who like this, and the relative clauses like that. Okay. The problem is that if we do so, there is a type mismatch because if we want to apply the subject dependency relation to who and praise, we're going to have that who is of type W and P, but the subject dependency relation is waiting for something like that. Okay. But then what we can do is just to use things the kind of combinators in order to coerce the argument. And so we may have those two combinators. The first one, in fact, oops, we're going to transform here the first argument, which is supposed to be a verb phrase in a W verb phrase, and this one going to transform the noun phrase into the W phrase. And then with those coercion functions, then we indeed obtain this. It's a possible parsing of a man who praises and a name. And if we just apply all those recipes that I gave, then it reduces to somehow what you expect. Okay, now very quickly, because I have not that much time left, for the open clausal complete. Okay, those are complements that are missing their subject, and the subject is actually provided by the control verb. Okay, so without entering into the technicalities, the solution here is to change the type of the verb phrase and to type raise not just events but pairs, to type raise events not only on T but on E or T. Okay, and with this solution, well, we obtain lambda term that would be too long maybe to explain, but they do the job. But this is not the end of the story, of course, because sometimes it might be the case that it is the object of the embedding clause that control the subject of the complement. In which case, then it's the object relation that is to be changed to make the job. And it's even worse because you have a verb that gonna do one thing or the other according to the fact that they have or not an object. Like in this example, Michel wants to praise someone, or Michel wants someone to praise. And consequently, we have a problem of overloading of the relations. Okay, we have a problem of overloading of the relations. For instance, we have all those possibilities for the subject. And it's also the case that according to the fact we have a dynamic verb or static verb, the subject will not give the same semantic verb. Okay, so there is of course a possibility of just controlling that with typing. Okay, and then we would have a sort of combinatory problem in giving types and distinguishing control verb for other verbs or dynamic verbs or static verbs. But another possibility, which I think is more promising, is to say, well, after all those things belong somehow to the lexical semantics of the words. And that solution would correspond to change the type of the verb in order to introduce into them the mandatory arguments. Okay, and then with that solutions, we obtain something much more easier for the relations. So it's not easy.
Okay, so very questions on what line to okay, if there's a question, I can begin. So you talked about control happening with argument, selected complements, but control can also happen with adverbial clauses. How would you deal with that? So like, being happy, John smiled. Or when harassed by Mary, John smiled.
Yeah.
How would you deal with those?
Well, the fact that we are type-grading the events, okay, that we are considering, so to speak, set of events, means that we have a way of giving giving semantic any kind of adverbial modifications. Okay. So when something that's sort of general answer.
Yeah, but it's the linking of the subject to that argument position within the adverbials.
Yeah, but
Very well.
yeah, but then to be precise about that, I would have to look at what the dependency, at what the dependency parsing looks like.
Oh, okay.
And that's the difficulty of this work, is that I do not have any freedom for choosing my dependencies, etc. I want to stick to what, for instance, the Stanford parts are going to give me. One motivation of this work is because there are a lot of corpora that are annotated in dependencies, but I have to stick to the way they do it. For instance, for copula, that's terrible, but you cannot change the way they are passed. But so in that very special case, I do not know. I have not
No question.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. I'm thinking, can we allow for changing type of node in the process of derivation? Like, because in the dependency tree, we don't have as many constituents as we have with structure tree, right? So the problem is, so for example, if we still can preserve the standard times for verb, right? Into EBT or something, right? And then say when it's combined with option first, then it changes. So we can kind of introduce time dimension in the process, and during the processing we change the type of the same node. Then that probably will help to this issue like this when we have that mismatch or something.
So
Yeah.
so we understand.
Yeah. Here, so we don't.
So we could have something else as beta is a beta.
Yeah. So what I propose is that we don't have the B type as the result, so we can have different types. So we can we kind of introduce a phrase structure constituents, but in the time dimension, like we connect first object, and we have like the head node to represent this constituent is verb result for phrase, and then we start to.
Yeah, you could imagine, for instance, that verb phrase, there would be different kinds. One for transitive verbs, one for non-transitive verbs, and then the object, dependency relation, would take possibly a non-phrase, a transitive verb phrase, and like a non-transitive verb phrase. That would be a possibility. But and this would like to enforce, would be like to enforce a way of
certain order on the connecting constituents.
So this is something we actually do for efficiency reasons, because of course we do not want my parsing to have all those spurious ambiguities. But at the more theoretical level of the design of the semantic interpretations, the reason why we are sticking to this is because we want the approach to be robust. Dependency parsing is considered to be more robust than constituency parsing, because with constituency parsing, if the sentence is not grammatical, then you just fail. While with dependency parsing, you anyway have some partial dependency structure. So imagine that you have a transitive verbs where the object would be mandatory, and you have an agrammatical phrase, an agrammatical sentence where the object is missing. With this approach, we would get something anyway. We will know that there is an event, and that the agent of this event is that probably there exists a meaning for that event that we will not see.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. We have time for one more question. Please, you ask your question. Information.
Did you tell me, or someone else? You was.
No.
Did you point me or not?
Yes, please ask a question.
Okay, thank you very much for talk. Well, I'm just stuck with the type for the noun phrase. Like it looks like the noun phrase wants a determiner, an adjective, and it can become a generalized quantifier. And so your definition is like first you get ET and get ET like adjective, and you can be a noun phrase can become a generalized quantifier, but it looks like it always wants an adjective before the noun. Well, looking at this type, the noun phrase always expects determiner and adjective. But well, like the example is like a man. It doesn't have any adjective, so I don't know if this type or the definition works always. Perhaps I missed your point.
But those arguments, determiners and nominal modifications, they are like optional arguments. And so if there's no adjective at some point, all those optional arguments are going to be saturated. And in the case of the adjective, it's going to be saturated with the identity, which is like not having any modifier.
Okay. So, okay, the missing argument is saturated. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
It seems we're out of time, so we should find the speaker.